muscle movements and the stability of the joints and how they act in like storing the energy. The aims. Review the aspects of ligaments and tendons, structure of ligaments and tendons, the function and how they adapt to the different performance and during exercise and during cyclic loading. Structure of tendons. I'm going to start to overview the structure of tendons. The most important part of the tendons is soft collagenous tissue, collagen type 1, which is a protein. This protein gives the tendons the ability to withstand tensile stresses and it gives it flexibility. And fibroblasts, they are the cells that produce the collagen type 1, and on the other hand, they produce the protoglycan matrix. The protoglycan matrix plays an important role in withstanding the compressive stresses. One of the things that gives the tendons an advantage over the bones is their helical structure. If we look at the structure of the tendons, we'll find that it starts with the microfibrils like a tree, and then the subfibril, and then the fibril, and after that the facillae, and then comes to form the tendons. If we look at the facillae, we'll find there's crimps. These crimps, they give the tendons and the ligaments, because this is present in the ligaments as well, they give them an advantage of being or performing as a spring, giving them a spring effect. So you'll find basically the crimps in area where are subjected to more stresses, because the crimps, when they are subjected to tensile stresses, they act as a spring, so they uncrimp. And when they are subjected to compressive stresses, it increases the compressive stress, strength, stiffness. The basic function of tendons. They connect muscles to bones. They carry tensile forces from muscle to bones. They carry compressive forces around about the bones like pulleys in many joints. They have elastic properties which enables them to function as springs, like I mentioned earlier. An example of that, if we look at the Achilles tendon, we'll find during the first part of the stride, or first stage of the stride, as the ankle dorsiflexes, the energy is stored, and this energy is then, is then expelled when the ankle plantarflexes. The structure of the ligaments. The structure of the ligaments is similar to the tendon in the helical structure. However, in the interior structure there are some differences. These differences lie in the collagen fibrils are slightly less in volume and fraction and organization than tendons. This gives the ligament a property of, they are more elastic than the collagen fibrils. On the other hand, it gives us a disadvantage that it doesn't withstand tensile stresses as much as the tendons do. And this explains when a person's joint is dislocated, you have to put it back in place as fast as possible, because it's stretched, and if you leave the ligament to stretch and you don't put it back, it might stay in that position and you need surgical repair. Higher percentage of protoglycan matrix than tendons, and this gives the advantage that it withstands more compressive stresses compared to tendons. And the fibroblast, which of course produces most of the tissue, the other part of the tissue. The function of ligaments. Ligaments connect bones to other bones to form a joint. They limit the mobility of articulation, which gives stability to the joints. They prevent certain movements, which also gives stability to the joints. They work as cushioning between the end of bones and prevent rubbing of them. And provide proprioceptive input to the brain, so the person or the brain can determine where the joints are located at any certain point without the need to look. The tendons and bones are unlike the structure, are in like the structure of bones. it's hard to study them in a quantitative perspective. That's because, as I mentioned before, of the presence of the crimp and the helical structure that they have. They exhibit a non-linear and a viscoelastic behavior, even under physiological loading, which is more difficult to analyze than the linear behavior of bone. And this is which I'm gonna be further overviewing in the coming slides. Non-linear elasticity. If we neglect the viscoelastic behavior of the ligaments and tendons, we can draw a stress-strain diagram for the ligaments and tendons, and it can be shown as follows. We'll find that it's separated to 3 different regions. The first region, which is the toe region, we'll find that this was low stiffness, and this represents the uncrimping of the crimps that I've mentioned before. And you can see from here that the stiffness here is much lower because it's easier to unfold the crimping. But after the crimps start to unfold, we go into the linear region. The linear region represents the stretching of the backbone of the ligaments or the tendon itself. And then after that, when we come to this, we reach the failure point. After the tendon or the ligament leaves its failure point, and it starts deformation, and was more like absorbing of tensile energy. The ligament starts to failure. And from this curve, we can conclude that the ligament or the tendon itself, the whole function of it depends in particular on the fibrils, on the crimps in the fibrils, and on the structure of the fibrils. Because if the crimps differ, this region will differ, and if the structure of the fibrils differ as well, this will make the linear region and the yield region differ, because it will fail faster or slower depending on its structure and its susceptibility to strength. This is a model that can be used to model the behavior of the ligaments and tendons under tensile and compression. If we look at the spring, we'll find that the spring, the more the applied force is to spring, the more the stiffness increases. By this, we are using the Vogt model, in which each fibril contributes in the overall behavior of the ligament. Each stiffness of the fibril contributes to the whole behavior. So as the stiffness of each fibril increases, it causes the increase of the rest of the whole ligament or tendon. Viscoelasticity. As I mentioned earlier, that the tendon or ligaments, they behave as a viscoelastic material. Viscoelastic material means that they have the behavior of both the viscous material and the elastic material. If we look at the behavior of the viscous material, we'll find that under stress, they resist shear, flow, and they resist strain with time. However, if we look at the elastic material, we'll find that the moment you apply stress, the moment the strain increases. And when you remove the strain, on the other hand, it returns to its original phase. So if we combine both of these together, we'll find that the tendon exhibits a strain time dependent behavior. So the strain varies with time when load is applied. And this can be both summarized in 3 major types of behavior. The first property is creep. If we look at this diagram, it explains creep. Creep means that if you apply to the tendon or ligament a constant load or cyclic load, you'll find that the deformation increases with time, even though that the load is constant. And this property actually gives the ligament or tendon advantage because it helps it to dissipate the strain energy. Because if the load is applied on the ligament for a long time and the energy is not dissipated, this could lead to fracture. So this helps in dissipating the energy. Consequence of elongation on the muscle fiber. If the tendons elongate or the ligaments elongate during cyclic loading, for example, when a person is running, this could have many major disadvantages on the muscle fibers. This will lead for the muscle fibers to be shorter, leading to that the muscle fibers will work in a shorter range of the length force curve, the group 2 output from the spindles